Imagine being in NBA Youngboy's house, starving for 2 days, not because there's no food, but because you're too scared to ask for any. Yeah, that's real, and it says everything about the kind of energy this man carries. People don't fear NBA Youngboy because of his lyrics, they fear him because of what happens in silence. Let me explain the kind of presence that can make a grown man starve in a house full of food. This isn't about fame, or beef, or street talk. It's about the kind of trauma that makes people freeze just being near you. And for NBA Youngboy, that fear has become his reality. A man stayed at NBA Youngboy's house for 2 days and didn't eat a single bite. Not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't dare. Here's why everyone around Youngboy walks on eggshells. They say fear is a form of respect. But what if it's actually a prison? This story about NBA Youngboy proves that sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't a man's actions, it's his energy. Imagine crashing at NBA Youngboy's place and not eating for 2 whole days, not because there's no food, but because you're too scared to ask for any. Sounds wild, right? But that's the kind of energy Youngboy gives off. People freeze up around him, even those who claim to be close friends. Now, before we get into it, let's make one thing clear. This isn't about his street reputation or what you've seen in the headlines. This is about the person behind the name. The human being whose energy is so intense, it can make grown men hesitate before asking for something as simple as a plate of food. You've probably heard the stories, the drama, the cases, the feuds, but those are just surface-level snapshots. What we're talking about goes much deeper. It's the invisible weight that follows him everywhere. The kind of presence that fills a room before he even says a word. So sit tight, because by the end of the story, you'll understand why even the people closest to him, his own friends, his own team, walk on eggshells around NBA Youngboy. At first glance, he might seem calm. He might even be smiling, joking, or playing games like any other young dude. But beneath that calm surface lies something heavy, a tension that never really leaves. His default energy is intense, and people around him can feel it. It's like everyone's waiting for a switch to flip. He could be in a good mood, vibing, ready to chill, but there's always that quiet edge in the air. The kind of edge that makes people second-guess their words, measure their tone, and tread carefully, because they know one wrong move could change the whole atmosphere. That's not paranoia. That's survival instinct. You see, when you've been through what Youngboy's been through, when you've seen real violence, real loss, real betrayal, your brain rewires itself. It learns to stay ready. Even in peace, it expects war. Psychologists call it hypervigilance. It's a trauma response, one that keeps you alive when danger is real, but makes normal life almost impossible. Youngboy's mind is always scanning, always watching, always ready to protect itself. Even when he's home, even when he's with friends, some part of him is still in that fight or die mode. That kind of constant alertness gives off an energy that people can sense, even when they can't explain it. They feel it in their gut, that mix of respect, fear, and uncertainty. Like they're standing next to someone who's been through things they can't even imagine. And that's the real tragedy here. The same instincts that kept him alive in the streets are the same ones that make it hard for him to have normal relationships now. People don't know how to act around him. They're careful, distant, guarded. And he feels that the tension, the distance, the quiet fear that never leaves the room. Imagine living like that. Always feeling people's hesitation. Always sensing that they don't fully relax around you. It's isolating. It's lonely. And over time, that loneliness turns into something deeper, a wall between him and the world. Because when people fear you, they can't be real with you. They can't joke around, can't be open, can't be themselves. They're too busy trying not to set you off. And for someone like Youngboy, who probably just wants a moment of peace, that kind of fear doesn't feel like power, it feels like prison. The crazy thing is, this fear isn't always earned in the moment. It's built over years of stories, the headlines, the internet talk, the street legends that shape how people see him before they even meet him. So by the time they're face to face, their minds are already made up. This dude's dangerous. But the truth is more complicated than that. Youngboy isn't just a symbol of violence or chaos. He's a person shaped by survival, someone who learned early on that in his world, fear keeps you safe. But what no one tells you is that it also keeps you alone. So when you hear about someone being too scared to ask him for food, understand, it's not just about intimidation. It's about the invisible weight of trauma, the energy of a life lived on the edge, and a man who's still learning how to live in peace after years of surviving chaos. And that's what this story is really about. Not the fame, not the controversy, but the psychology behind the fear and the human cost of living with it. The aura that demands respect. Youngboy isn't just another rapper who talks tough on a track. He carries a kind of intensity that you can feel. It's not an act, it's who he is. The man has lived through real chaos, violence, trauma, betrayal, and all that leaves a mark. It reshapes the way you move, talk, even breathe. When someone has been through that kind of life, their body never fully relaxes. Their mind stays in survival mode. They're always alert, even when they're just sitting at home, playing a game, or chilling with friends. And that energy spreads. Everyone around starts to feel like they need to be alert too, just to match the vibe. That's the thing about trauma, it doesn't just change your past, it changes your presence. The science behind the fear. See, when a person spends years fighting to stay alive, their brain rewires itself. The instinct to survive becomes their default setting. For Youngboy, that means projecting strength always. Showing weakness wasn't an option in the world he came from. So now, even in safe spaces, his energy says, "Don't test me." It's like having a security system that never turns off. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps everyone else on edge. What's crazy is, Youngboy probably doesn't even realize it. To him, he's just being normal. But to the people around him, it feels like standing next to a live wire. You can sense that tension without him saying a single word. When fear meets hunger. Now here's the story that really exposes just how deep this fear goes. Youngboy's friend, Chopper Boy, once told a story about a guy staying at Youngboy's house. This man went 2 days without eating, not because there wasn't food, but because he was too scared to ask. Think about that. A grown man, starving in a house full of food, because he didn't want to bother his friend. That's not regular fear, that's psychological pressure. It's when someone's energy is so intense, you'd rather suffer quietly than risk setting them off. When Youngboy finally found out, he was honestly confused. He asked, "Why didn't you just say you were hungry? You could have told me or asked the chef." But that's exactly what makes this story so powerful. Even when he didn't mean to scare anyone, his presence alone did the job. The deeper meaning. That's the thing about energy like Youngboy's. It's not just physical intimidation. It's something deeper, something psychological. People aren't scared of what he might do. They're scared of what he could do. They've seen how fast his mood can flip, how quickly calm can turn into chaos. So they hold back. They stay quiet. They choose hunger over honesty. And that says more about Youngboy than any rumor, lyric, or headline ever could. He's not just feared because of what he's done, he's feared because of what he survived. And that survival instinct follows him everywhere he goes. When fear has a face, the truth about being around NBA Youngboy. That kind of fear, the kind that makes grown men freeze up, comes from being around someone unpredictable. When Youngboy found out his guest had gone hungry for 2 days, he was genuinely confused and a little frustrated. In his mind, he'd done everything right, opened his home, provided comfort, made sure people were taken care of. But what he didn't realize was that his very presence carried a weight most people couldn't handle. His energy was so strong, so intense, that it created fear where none was meant to exist. The snake incident, when accidents turn into anxiety. But that wasn't the only moment that showed how tense people feel around Youngboy. There's another story, one that's almost unbelievable. A cameraman once came to shoot some footage at Youngboy's house. During the session, he accidentally stepped on Youngboy's pet snake, an expensive one, and killed it. Now, imagine that for a second. You just killed a famous rapper's prized pet, in his own home. The air in the room changed instantly. Silence. Eyes wide. Nobody dared to move. Everyone turned toward Youngboy, waiting to see what he'd do. The cameraman looked like he'd seen a ghost, probably thinking this was it for him. That's how thick the tension gets around Youngboy. Even a simple accident can feel like a life-or-death situation. But here's the twist. Instead of losing his temper, Youngboy surprised everyone. He stayed calm. He told the cameraman it was an accident and told everyone to chill and get back to work. Just like that, the fear in the room disappeared. A calm reaction, a fearful room. That moment says a lot about who Youngboy really is. He handled the situation reasonably, more maturely than people expected. But the real story is the reaction of everyone else in that room. Nobody expected calmness. Everyone braced for an explosion that never came. And that's where the contradiction lies. Youngboy might actually be trying to be chill, to have normal interactions, but people are too scared to see it. They expect the worst because they've either seen it before or heard stories about what happens when he's angry. So even when he's cool, people around him can't relax. And that creates a cycle. Youngboy tries to be normal, but everyone treats him like he's dangerous. That makes him feel misunderstood, maybe even lonely, and sometimes that frustration might be what pushes him closer to the behavior people fear in the first place. The energy that commands a room. So, what is it about Youngboy that makes people feel that way? It's not just his reputation, it's deeper. When someone has lived through trauma, when they've had to be ready for violence at any second, it changes the way they move. It changes their body language, their tone, their eyes. Youngboy's been through things most people can't even imagine, and that survival energy never really goes away. His posture, his expression, even the way he walks, everything about him says, "Don't mess with me." And it's not an act. It's a survival instinct burned into his system. People who've been around him describe it perfectly. When Youngboy walks into a room, the air feels heavier. Conversations fade. People watch their words and even how they move. It's not that he's doing anything wrong, it's that his presence carries all the weight of what he's been through. And the wildest part? Half the time, he's probably not even mad. That's just who he is now, a man whose energy tells the story of everything he survived. The survival instinct that never turns off. Youngboy could be in a great mood, chilling, laughing, maybe even having fun, but the energy around him still feels heavy. People can't fully relax, because deep down, they're waiting for that switch to flip. It's not that he's doing anything wrong, it's just that his default setting is intensity. Here's what most people don't understand about Youngboy. His mind isn't wired like most people's. When you've lived through the kind of chaos and danger he has, your brain learns to stay on high alert. It's called hypervigilance, a trauma response that helps you survive in dangerous situations, but makes normal life hard to live. Even when he's home, surrounded by people he trusts, part of him is still scanning for threats. Still ready to react. Still living like he's one wrong move away from disaster. And that kind of energy doesn't just stay inside him, it spreads. People around him feel it. They might not understand it, but they sense it. They feel like they're standing next to a live wire, someone who could go from calm to chaos in seconds. The sad part? That same survival instinct that kept him alive in the streets is now the very thing making it hard for him to connect with people. Friends can't relax. They can't joke freely. They're too busy trying not to set him off. And Youngboy probably feels that distance too. The awkward silence, the forced smiles, the quiet fear. That isolation? It's the hidden cost of survival. The unpredictable factor. What makes Youngboy especially intimidating isn't just his past, it's his unpredictability. People who've been around him say you never know which version of him you'll meet. One minute, he's calm, laughing, playing games, talking like any young guy. The next minute, something tiny might set him off, and the whole room shifts. It's not random, it's stress. When you're dealing with constant pressure, legal battles, family issues, street politics, it's hard to regulate emotions. Small things can feel like big threats when your body is always bracing for impact. Moods, his silence, his energy when it gets heavy, that proves something. And maybe that's why some people stay, even when they're clearly scared. Their fear becomes proof of loyalty. They're afraid, but they're still there, still trying to maintain the bond, still showing up despite the pressure. But that kind of loyalty is built on survival, not trust. Real loyalty comes from love and respect, not from being too scared to walk away. And that's what makes this dynamic so complicated. It's a form of connection, but it's not a healthy one. How the media fuels the fear. A big reason people fear Youngboy so much is the story that surrounds him, the one the media has built. Every arrest, every headline, every rumor adds another layer to his reputation. By the time someone meets him in real life, they already have an image in their head of a violent, unpredictable person. That creates a self-fulfilling cycle. People expect him to be dangerous, so they act nervous around him. He feels that fear and frustration, and when he reacts to it, even slightly, it confirms their expectations. It's hard to be gentle when everyone's treating you like you're a threat. The truth is, Youngboy is probably capable of both extremes. He can be explosive, but he can also be incredibly kind. The media just doesn't show the second part. So, his reputation walks into every room before he does, shaping how people treat him before he even opens his mouth. And when people have already decided who you are, it becomes almost impossible to show them anything different. When fear becomes a business tool. Being feared isn't always bad for business, and Youngboy might know that. In an industry full of manipulation and fake smiles, a dangerous reputation can actually protect you. People think twice before crossing you. They're less likely to cheat you, disrespect you, or play games when they believe you'll react fiercely. That kind of energy demands respect, but it also creates new problems. If people are too scared to be honest, you stop hearing the truth. Nobody tells you when something sounds off or when you're making a mistake. Everyone just nods and agrees because challenging you feels risky. And that's when bad decisions happen, not because you don't care, but because no one around you feels safe enough to speak up. The hunger story showed that perfectly. If someone's too scared to ask for food, they're definitely too scared to speak up about business or creative ideas. Fear might keep people around, but it silences them too. The weight of intimidation. What most people don't think about is how exhausting it must be for Youngboy to live like this. Always alert. Always projecting strength. Always surrounded by people who fear him more than they understand him. That kind of constant tension wears you down. He probably wants to relax sometimes, to laugh without people flinching, to have friends who treat him like a person, not a symbol. But trauma doesn't just fade. It traps you in habits that once protected you but now keep you isolated. The hunger story proved that disconnect. In his mind, he was being a good host, offering a place to stay, trying to show love. But the guest couldn't feel that. His presence was so intense, it turned comfort into fear. And that probably happens a lot in Youngboy's life. He means well, but people misread his energy. He tries to connect, but they shrink away. And that has to be lonely, being feared for the same strength that once kept you alive. Things most people couldn't handle. It's not just attitude, it's instinct. Every look, every silence, every movement carries the memory of danger. He's lived through life or death situations, and those experiences shaped him in ways that don't fade easily. We've seen it in stories like the hunger situation and the snake incident. Even when he's calm, people assume the worst. Even when he's being reasonable, they brace for chaos. It's like everyone's waiting for an explosion that never comes, but the tension is always there. The human cost. The sad part is, Youngboy is just as trapped by that fear as everyone else. He can't fully relax, can't be vulnerable, can't show weakness, because the world doesn't expect him to be human. Everyone around him sees danger before they see depth. And in that environment, real connection is almost impossible. He's missing out on the kind of simple, healthy relationships everyone needs, people he can laugh with, trust, and just be himself around. That's the real price of trauma. Street life doesn't just leave scars on your body, it reshapes your mind. It doesn't just affect who you fight. It affects how you love, how you trust, how you exist. Youngboy might have made it out of the streets physically, but mentally, he's still fighting the same battles. That's why the fear around him feels so heavy. It's not just about reputation. It's the aura of someone who's been through hell and hasn't stopped carrying that fire with him. The real reason people fear him. When people meet Youngboy, they're not just seeing the artist. They're feeling the energy of someone who's lived on the edge and survived. And even if they don't understand it, they feel it. Real recognizes real, but trauma recognizes trauma too. That's why everyone around him senses it, even when they can't explain it. It's not that he's always dangerous. It's that he carries a kind of pain, a kind of history, that never really leaves. And that kind of energy, raw, unfiltered, and real, is impossible to ignore. No cap. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be understood, not just judged.